Hey everyone, we're here for our next session. It's going to be a technical workshop on how to set up a node for routing on the Lightning Network. And we have Alex Bosworth here that'll be giving the talk, and I'll let him take it from here.
Hi, great, thanks. Let me toggle my video to present. Okay, so I'm Alex Bosworth, and I work for Lightning Labs. I'm the Lightning Infrastructure Lead. And today I put together some slides to talk about how to set up your routing node, your Lightning routing node. And why would you run a Lightning routing node? So the reason that I'll choose is you want to make money. So you want to run your routing node and you want to make money doing it. And how do you do that? So that's something that I do with my own node. I run a couple routing nodes, and I'm not making a fortune, but I make enough to buy myself a coffee every day, which is pretty cool. You can make money online. That's what the dream is. And I'd like to talk about some scripts I wrote, a tool I wrote called Balance of Satoshis. So if you go to my GitHub, there's the tool, it's open source, MIT licensed, and there's also a guide that you can follow along about how to set up LND, how to set up Bitcoin Core, and how to set up Balance of Satoshis to get going. And I'll talk to you about kind of how to go through the process of from nothing becoming a routing node and making money. Okay, so the start of becoming a routing node is that you have to think about what are you actually doing. What a routing node does is it moves money across a Lightning network. And the way that it does that is that somebody comes to it and says, I want to send money from this, I'm this peer and I want to send money to another peer. So a lot of times people say, well, what's your rate of return? And I think that's a valid question to ask, but it implies that the Lightning funds are lending. And it's not lending. What you're doing is you're providing a service to people who need to kind of deplete your account, the money in your account in one place, and increase your money in your account in another place, and you're charging them to do that. So I think of it like a web service. And since you're charging money, and this is designed to make money, you need to think of it like a business. And in a business, what you need to do is you need to buy things cheap and sell them expensive. So if you're like a coffee shop, you buy cheap coffee beans and you sell them expensive in a latte. So the same thing applies here. You need to think about how to minimize your costs and maximize your profit. And you're a merchant. That's like the role you're playing online. And the reason that people need this service is because this is a scaling solution to what they already want to do, which is they want to move around money. And the other alternatives are just too expensive, or they don't like it for some other reasons, like privacy or speed, that kind of thing. Okay, so now we get to step one, how to become a routing node. So the first thing you need to know is if you want to operate a routing node, well, you need Bitcoins. Well, if you want to be a Bitcoin routing node, which is kind of the only game in town at the moment. So first, you'll need to acquire some Bitcoins. And why do you need Bitcoins? It's because you need to maintain operating balances with all of your different channels. And you're not just fulfilling it like a web API request. You are like actively changing your allocation of Bitcoins. And if you want to realize the economies of scale of Lightning, you need to avoid going to the chain as much as possible. And to avoid going to the chain, let's say your channel is fully depleted. So you are creating a channel with somebody on the Lightning Network. And what that means is you can now send a bunch of times to that person, virtually unlimited times, but what you're capped by is your capital. So you can actually only send one time if it's the full amount of the channel, and you can send 1,000 times if it's 1,000th of the amount in the channel. So if you can work backwards from that, what that means is the more capital you have, the more you can divide it, And that is going back to the cost part of the equation. So every time you've completely depleted the channel and you can no longer sell routing services to send to that channel, now what you're going to do is you're probably going to create a new channel and you're going to pay an on-chain fee, and that's going to eat into your bottom line. So you want to avoid that. So in Balance of Satoshis, I have two tools to help you do that. And one is the chain deposit. So that creates an address for you. And the other one is chain fees. So it shows you how much is it going to cost me to do stuff. Okay, the second step is you need to find peers, and don't just connect to any peer on the network. That's not really going to help you. What you want is you want to choose at least some obvious peers who are pretty good. And I operate a web service that suggests peers to connect to that are just obvious good choices. And in Balance of Satoshis, I've actually already connected up to that web service, and you can just use a command, increase outbound liquidity, and that will assign your capital to peers that I've selected that I think are generally good. But those only cover kind of outbound peers or peers who are already well connected. But as a routing node, what you are really trying to do is you're trying to connect people who are not already connected. Because if you're connecting people who are already connected, you're not really providing much of a service to anybody. And the other thing you want to do is you want to avoid peers who are just going to go offline, or they're going to force close on you, or they're going to not have any activity, because all of those peers represent cost. They represent your capital is being locked up, and they represent potentially on-chain fees that you have to pay for. So that's the step two, is you have to make sure to choose your peers on the network wisely. Don't just choose anybody. And the most important is the inbound peers. So outbound peers I can recommend to you. I can say, here, put your money with these guys. They're well connected. But the inbound peers who are not well connected, that's kind of on you. That's the question mark in the 1, 2, 3 profit scenario. Okay, so step 3, you've put in all your money and you created channels with all sorts of people. Well, you are, and a lot of people at this step take a look at their node and they say, why am I not routing any payments anywhere? I put in my money, I started up some channels, and I'm not doing any routing. And a lot of people at this stage don't understand why they're not doing routing. And the reason they're not doing routing is that nobody's assigned capital to them. And capital coming to you, I call it inbound liquidity. So that means that other people have assigned capital in your direction. And if nobody has assigned capital in your direction, well, then you can't route, because routing is taking capital that's assigned in your direction and then moving it out into a direction that you've assigned your own capital to. Another thing that's interesting, though, about inbound liquidity is that it's kind of a fungible product. So if you get inbound on one channel, you can actually move it to another peer, to another channel. And I'll talk about that later. So really what you should focus on in the beginning of starting your node is just getting your inbound liquidity number up. So just, whatever your outbound is, you need to have sufficient to kind of match that. So don't just put in tons of outbound and then have very little inbound. And there's various ways that you can get it, like just increase your total number of Satoshis of Bitcoins that are locked to you. And the most straightforward ways are you can just go buy it. So there's a Lightning Loop service, which is also, you can just go and use increase inbound liquidity. And it's just a command, and it will do everything for you, and it will increase the amount of inbound liquidity that you have. Another way that you can increase your inbound liquidity is you can buy channels. So you can just go to channel offering services. I operate one at yells.org/about. When the fees are low, I sell inbound channels. There's also Bitrefill operates a channel selling service. And then, of course, you can also get your inbound liquidity for free. It's not quite as self-service. You have to kind of advertise yourself, but certainly that's, you can't beat that price. So whatever way that you go about it, whatever way that you achieve it, you just focus on making sure that inbound liquidity number goes up. And also Balance of Satoshis has a feature which will show you the total number of inbound liquidity. The inbound liquidity, like, I would say that there is a proviso, which is you don't want somebody to create a channel to you if it isn't fungible. So normally inbound liquidity is fungible because you can move it around the network. You can move it from one peer to another peer by just paying in a circular way. But some peers are just not well connected at all, or maybe their fees are too high. And in that case, then their inbound is either not fungible at all, or it costs money to be fungible. So it's not quite fungible. There's a cost associated. Okay, so now we're on step 4. That's when things really can start happening. You've already got your money invested with good peers. You've created channels with good peers in an outgoing way, and you have inbound liquidity. So you've got money that is pointed towards you. Now starts the cycle of routing, and in this cycle, what you need to be doing is you need to be looking at where funds are flowing to, and moving the capital in those areas. So let's say you have acquired a bunch of inbound liquidity, but it's on peer A. But actually, there's no money coming from peer A. So none of your routing is coming from peer A and going anywhere. But you have peer B, and peer B you have only a little bit of inbound on, whereas peer A you have a lot of inbound on. But on peer B, you're doing quite a lot of, it's generating a lot of inbound traffic. So what you need to do is you need to figure this out. So you need to figure out, and in the same way in the outbound way. So maybe you have a lot of outbound focused on one area and minimal outbound focused on another area. You need to figure out where money is flowing. And so Balance of Satoshi is the tool that I use. It's got some tools for that. One is the forwards, and that will show you over different days where money is coming in and where money is coming out. And it also has a way to list all of the peers, all the nodes you're connected to, and show you how much you've earned. That's like how much you've earned in fees associated with them. So that reflects how much routing traffic you've been doing. And then I have another feature, which is that I can show you where your payments are sending the most through. So maybe so your own data can be relied upon the most. Like if you're paying a bunch of money to this one node, or they're helping you forward a lot, that's something that you know from your own experiences, and you can really rely on it. And what you're trying to do again is you're trying to take the inbound that is not common, and you're trying to capitalize on that. You're trying to connect up people who are otherwise not connected, and figuring out who those people are. That's kind of your job in the marketplace. Okay, so the step 5 is to act upon that knowledge. So you've created this you've got this knowledge. Let's say every day you sit down and you look at the forwards list, and Balance of Satoshis has a script to kind of parse all of those different forwards and kind of make sense of them. And it's showing you, look, here is money coming in from this direction and money going out on this other direction. So if you're doing things successfully, what will probably be happening to you is that, like, if you're wildly successful, what's going to be happening to you is that your channels are going to be spent down. So somebody is going to be really sending a lot to one destination, and you're going to be running out of liquidity, and they've already bought all of your liquidity up. When you have no more liquidity with an outbound destination, you can't route to there anymore. So and the same applies in the opposite direction. If somebody has already spent down their entire channel to you, well, then they can't spend it down anymore. So what you can do is you can act upon this information. So you can say, you can do rebalancing. So you can, in a circle, send from the high outbound liquidity to the low outbound liquidity. And Balance of Satoshis has a tool for this, which actually it will just automatically try to do that rebalancing for you. It will try to look at where is low and where is high, and it will try to smooth all that out. Although this is something that you need to kind of play around with and figure out like how it's working, because if it can't always automatically figure out the best place to assign liquidity. So sometimes it takes a little bit more intelligence, and it has tools to tell it what to do exactly. And this requires, all this stuff is kind of like alien stuff. Like you have to think about inbound liquidity and outbound liquidity, and moving funds from one channel to another channel. It's not very intuitive on how to make, how to even like conceptualize these concepts. So you have to spend time thinking about how the nature of the network, the idea that this network is comprised of channels, that you have a local balance and a remote balance on, and then everybody else is in the same situation. Because a lot of this is just figuring out how to even how this stuff even works. And another thing I would say is rebalancing is very powerful, but it is also dangerous if you have not set your fees properly. So one thing you can do with rebalancing is that you can say, oh, I've earned some money on this inbound channel or this outbound channel. I've earned some money, and you know what? I can do a circular rebalance, and I can pay some money that's below the money that I earned to reset things, and that will make sense because I made money, so now I can spend some of that money, or even maybe I can preemptively spend some money so that I will in the future get fees. But the problem is the way that fees are designed in Lightning. Your people buying inbound liquidity for people getting inbound liquidity with you only have to pay the fee that's the lowest fee, and it's hard to think. It's not intuitive at all to think about that. But that's why I set all my fees to an even number. So that way I can always just make it super simple and think, if you want to route through me, here's what it costs, and that's a percentage cost. The other thing to think about is that your money has a time value. You don't want to just have your capital sitting around doing nothing. So rebalancing is a way to say, okay, I've got too much capital sitting over here for too long, so I'm going to reduce it. And maybe eventually I'll even close the channel. I'll close out with a peer because I reduced it once, nothing happened. I reduced it again, nothing happened. So then maybe it's a good time to move on to another peer. And there's another feature, which is increase outbound liquidity, which I talked about before. Okay, so the process is really it's really a simple process as long as you can get your head around it. So you add outbound liquidity, you connect up to peers, you create channels with them, and money starts on your side. So what you're going to need to do is find other people who are going to peer up with you, and money will be on their side. And then once you've figured that out, you need to make sure that the money is allocated efficiently, and you're doing that through rebalancing, through monitoring, that kind of thing, or buying more inbound liquidity, and then you're just going to repeat that. So every day, or as much as you'd like, you can look at the state of your channels. And not many people are even doing a great job at this. That's why I think it's possible for me to earn money, to earn a coffee every day doing it, is because I think there's not a huge amount of money in it. So it's a fun activity that you can do and you can make some money at. And the other thing that I've tried to do with Balance with Satoshis is I've tried to make it easy to automate and easy to get a high level view of things. So you can take one of these rebalance operations, you can just stick it in a cron job, and you can play with it on testnet. So in testnet, I have automated inbound liquidity, automated rebalancing. I mean, I have nothing to lose. So, and I actually want to maintain my testnet nodes. So I just stick a bunch of these commands in cron jobs. Then I also have a feature which it will connect up your nodes to a Telegram bot. So kind of help you keep tabs on what's going on with your nodes. And I mean, the most fun thing is you are making Satoshis. You're accumulating money. And I've got some fun tools for that. One is the chart fees earned, so you can see from day to day in a little in the console, like a little graph that's showing you how much money you're making. And then I have also more detailed stats if you're interested in that, which is the accounting tool, which will help output the records of your node into CSV files that you can import into Excel or Google Docs or wherever you want. And then you can make make cool charts into whatever you want with that data. Or you can do not fun things like do your taxes. So those are the steps to make money online, to set up your routing node, to be a profitable router. I've routed many hundreds of thousands of dollars over the Lightning Network. So I've had a lot of experience with this, and I make a tool that that will help you do it, and it's totally free. And I'm also publishing, my insights or whatever I figure out about the Lightning Network or updates to stuff I'm working on Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter, and that's it.
All right. So if you guys have any questions for him, please drop in the ask a question section at the bottom. And he will be able to pull it. All right. And if there are no additional questions, we're going to take a short 8-minute break and then transition to our next. Oh, there is a question. Go for it.
What kind of server do you need to run a node? So I have on my GitHub, I have some info on like recommended setup for a node, but it depends on the kind of stuff that you want to do with your node. So I would use like AWS as a benchmark. Like, what kind of AWS instance do you need? You can run a node with a micro instance, very small instance. It doesn't cost a lot of money. But if you want to run a routing node, I would recommend like a medium instance. So nothing huge, but or equivalent hardware to a medium instance. So like maybe 4 GB of memory and a couple of cores. Yeah, that's nothing crazy, but at least some power to it.
I think you have 3 more questions in the ask a question
section.
section.
I see the ask question. Thanks. Okay. Any issues most commonly occurring with maintaining the network? Well, I actually think that liquidity is the biggest problem with the network. That's really an issue that depends on how much money you want to send across the network. And that's what you're doing with the routing nodes. That's what the routing node is solving. It's solving the problem of like, we need to get the liquidity in the right places. So I think that's the biggest issue. How is security implemented? I have like a talk on my GitHub about like how to do security. It's not super complicated in terms of you just kind of set up a firewall and lock it down. I'm working on different ways to improve the security, but that's the basic. The other thing that I'm excited about is LND, which is a Lightning software I run. It has a new way to externally fund your Lightning wallet, and there's a that way you can kind of keep your regular coins on your hardware wallet. And LND also has a feature which is the predetermined cooperative close address. So the only way that the funds can cooperatively close out is to go to you could set that to be your hardware wallet. So I'm looking forward to like making to those kind of features progressing so that maybe the only way that funds can close out is to your hardware wallet. Okay, I've been running LND for a year, but only 51 routes so far. How can I get more routes? Well, yeah, a lot of people say that, and that's kind of why I was trying to make tools and stuff. The getting more routes is really about inbound liquidity. That's like the #1 thing to focus on. You need inbound liquidity, and there's all sorts of problems which can stop you from routing, like you don't have enough capital or something like that. But the #1 thing that stops you from routing is you don't have inbound liquidity. Okay, the cost-profit relationship does go in advantage. That's the question. I would say it really depends. It's kind of like a business. Like most businesses probably don't work. So I wouldn't go in expecting that you're going to make a mint because, a business you're competing with everybody else. So you got to do it better than everybody else. But if you can, then I think you'll make money. And my node, certainly, I'm making making some bucks. So, and also I just find it rewarding just doing it anyway. So I would say it's good cost profit or cost benefit relationship. Security issues. When will I be able to hold $1 billion in a Lightning channel? Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that that I want to push on too. Of course, you can technically hold $1 billion in a Lightning channel right now. You just have to modify the LND source code or use a different implementation. The question is, like, would you want to do that? And what I would really look at for that is I would look at what are the security guarantees and security problems, of how the channels are constructed. You have a smart contract. The smart contract has things like, well, we're going to wait a few days for this to resolve. But maybe in a case of $1 billion, a few days is not enough. And I think those things are actually possible to add to Lightning, but we can't just go from 0 to $1 billion right away. There needs to be demand for the value to increase, which there has been, and values have been increasing. And then there are also, these people who want to put $1 billion in, they better be doing some development, contributing some development to making it so that those settings are easy for them to change and are well known about what are the security limitations. Because even Bitcoin, if you send $1 billion and you wait for one confirmation, you're doing it wrong. Okay, particularly around hot wallets being constantly online, that's a big security risk. Yeah, for sure. It's a big security risk to keep your money on Lightning channels. I mean, what's the comparison? We're comparing it to keeping your money in cold storage. So that could be something like paper in a vault. It could be some like isolated computers you never touched. It could be hardware wallets. Things where they have this layer of logical security, where there's no way that it could possibly your funds get taken. And so we can't do anything in Lightning to even approach that level of security, because we're running something where money is in a hot computer connected to the internet. But we can certainly do a lot to mitigate that. And what I talked about with the funding from outside wallets, that's kind of a thing that we can do. And another thing that we can do is we can actually potentially have this thing, which I want to see happen, which is called peer policies. That's where your peers could actually help you with your security by not allowing money to move in ways that are unexpected. So you could say, I'm only going to, if I move more than $1,000 a day, give me make me do a second level authentication or something, because your peers have to cooperate with you in order to move your money around. I also think that, we can do more to harden the protocol, and that's one reason why you're charging. Like, why are you charging for your routing services? It's because you're taking on this risk. You're taking on this security risk. So if you're not up for that, then you shouldn't run a routing node at all.
All right, so we can probably take one last question, but we need to end very soon. So can you just pick one that you like?
Yeah.
All right.
Would CTV covenants help, similarly to root plus intermediate certs? Yeah, I think those kind of things could help. Although I would be a little wary of there's just a lot of complexity in the protocol. So if it was going to help, I would really look to it to simplify our lives, because we have so much complexity in the different ways that the different contracts can resolve. And people are still finding issues where, if you go to the Lightning mailing list, Matt Corallo, highlights an issue that we've known about for a long time, which is that the mempool can be unpredictable in certain scenarios, and that can interact poorly with Lightning, which really depends heavily on mempool acceptance. So you have to really have this strong assumption that this money that I'm holding in an unconfirmed transaction, that can become a confirmed transaction if I choose it. But if that assumption is ever not good, then you could potentially have your money in danger. So if we can get more to things that are predictable, I think that can really help with the security and help with the amount of volume, and help us hold $1 billion on Lightning.
All right, thanks, Alex. This is really great, and thanks for letting us change the time for your session. We really appreciate it. All right, cool. Is there a link you want to share with people so they can potentially contribute to Lightning if they have time, or any docs?
If you go to lightning.engineering,
Okay.
we set up docs and links to GitHub and Lightning Loop, something that I work on. So I would check that out.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. We're going to transition to the next session then. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.